Another day, another feature story on one of the 49ers 2022 rookies. Remember earlier this week, it was the big one on Drake Jackson, and now a bigger one on Tariq Castro-Fields, intriguing cornerback out of Penn State, sixth round pick. 49ers picked him up at number 221. And I would say that Tariq Castro-Fields might be the toughest 49ers 2022 pick to figure it out. So let's go through why. Be sure to check out the article in the comments section. It's linked there for you in the Athletic. $1 a month. And a little bit later, I'll show you the entire collection of articles that we have so far, as we have this entire class, including some undrafted free agents, nearly blanketed. So anyway, let's rewind a little bit. Why is Tariq Castro-Fields such a tough prospect and tough rookie now to figure out? Well, first of all, he was on track to be a day 1 to 2 pick, and I mean rounds 1 to 3, before an injury about halfway through the 2019 season. In fact, this is when the 49ers saw Tariq Castro-Fields in person for the first time. You remember that Mud Bowl game against Washington in October of 2019 of the Super Bowl year when Nick Bosa was doing the slip and slide? Well, Adam Peters went from Washington, D.C. to Happy Valley, Pennsylvania the day before on Saturday, and he saw Penn State play Michigan, Jim Harbaugh's Michigan. Shea Patterson was the quarterback for the Wolverines. And one of 2 Tariq Castro-Fields interceptions in that 2019 season came in that football game. And it was an awfully impressive interception. He sniffed out a screen pass, even though Michigan was running a fake to the left side before tossing it to the right. Castro-Fields was waiting in the bushes, and he showed how his film study and his due diligence, his ability to prepare schematically for opposing offenses, he put that on tape right in front of Adam Peters. So Peters got to see it live, and then he said, well, we got to watch this film. And the 49ers really started liking Tariq Castro-Fields as he went on a surge in that 2019 season. However, when we explain the fall of his draft stock to the 6th round of 2021, a lot of it is just in the timing of that, right? And it was his 3rd year in 2019. Tariq Castro-Fields, if he had continued along that trajectory in 2019, probably would have come out of Penn State and entered the draft that following season in 2020. However, that did not happen because he suffered an undisclosed injury, did not finish 2019 as strong as he started it because he was favoring that injury. Then he was hurt through a lot of 2020, and he finally delivered a healthy 2021. But by that point, Castro-Fields was the 5th-year senior. He wasn't the hotshot prospect coming out of the draft after his junior year, and his stock had fallen considerably to the point where Terry Smith, his DB coach at Penn State, I talked to Terry Smith for this article, said, I was sure he was a 2nd or 3rd round talent in 2019. Obviously, in 2021, he wasn't. Now, you got Dane Brugler, Athletics draft analyst, a ton of other mock drafts pegged Castro-Fields as a 4th rounder. So the 49ers still believe they got value relative to that in the 6th round, but they really, really got value relative to the early 2nd and 3rd round projection in 2019, assuming that they can get Tariq Castro-Fields to play the level of football that he did at his peak at Penn State. So what is working in Castro-Fields in the 49ers' favor? Well, first off, Tariq Castro-Fields comparisons to Richard Sherman. This is as far as the cerebral aspect of the game. Now, Castro-Fields is a long cornerback. He's about 6'1". He's not 6'3" like Sherman. He's got shorter arms than Sherman, and he's probably faster than Sherman. I'll talk about that in a little bit. 4.38 40 for Castro-Fields actually is really impressive. Hard to believe the 49ers were able to get a corner as toolsy as him when it comes to the burst aspect of the game in the 6th round. But Terry Smith, his DB coach, told me, there was one cornerback that we tried to get Tariq to emulate when we put on the tape at Penn State, when we watched NFL guys at Penn State, and that was Richard Sherman. Now, remember that Richard Sherman was a big-time mentor in the 49ers locker room, right? He was the guy that would teach the younger defensive backs about scheme, about what to look for. I mean, I have it in this article. We can even find a link here. There's a great picture of Richard from back in the day. Sherman's tutelage of defensive backs. Here it is. Richard Sherman's impact on the 49ers extends far beyond his stellar play. I wrote this piece back in 2018, November 5th, 2018. Here is Sherman coaching Tyvis Powell, who was on the 49ers back then in that 2018 season. And obviously the domino effects of Sherman's maturity in that locker room were felt in such a positive way. They really came to fruition for the 49ers in 2019 when that defense surged to the top of the league rankings. Anyway, Terry Smith, who is Tariq Castro-Fields' position coach from Penn State, said that Castro-Fields would actually coach the DB room there. And he also said that Richard Sherman was the tape that they put on for Castro-Fields to emulate. So immediately I thought of those two things. I think of Castro-Fields watching Sherman tape, and then Castro-Fields being a coach in the DB room at Penn State. And I think, oh, well, this is like a college version of Richard Sherman. And that's, when I talk to Castro-Fields, that's exactly what he wants to be. He wants to be able to cerebrally attack the game the same way that Richard Sherman has been able to over 10 plus years in the National Football League. So again, Terry Smith emphasized, I'm not saying that he is Richard Sherman. I'm saying that if he can continue to attack the game from the same intellectual perspective, if he knows where to be, if he can recognize different route concepts, if he can take formational clues from the offense and then be able to be a step or two ahead defensively, right, of where the offense is going to go, because the offense in football knows where they're going. The receiver has his path charted out. The cornerback is reacting. Well, if Tariq Castro-Fields can use his intelligence and his study to neutralize or at least mitigate part of that disadvantage, well, then Terry Smith said that he has a bright future ahead of him in the NFL. One other thing about Tariq Castro-Fields, competition for Penn State cornerbacks is intense. They play Ohio State every year, and we know that Ohio State is a receiver factory this year with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson going both in the first round at 10 and 11. That tells you all you need to know about what the league thinks of Ohio State receivers. So on top of having to face Ohio State receivers, though, Tariq Castro-Fields had to face his own receivers at Penn State in practice, and those guys were no slouches. In fact, when you look at some of the competition, it started with Deshaun Hamilton, who is, Deshaun Hamilton is now obvious in the NFL, but he was an upperclassman back when Tariq Castro-Fields was a freshman. So the minute that he walks through the door at Penn State and is thrown on, in with the Wolves on that practice field, Tariq Castro-Fields has to work with and against a veteran who's about to enter the league, who's very skilled at his craft. So, if you're thrown in with the Sharks, you have to learn how to swim. That's what happened early on with Tariq Castro-Fields in the Big Ten at Penn State. But throughout the course of his entire time there, and this is the paragraph in the article where I talk about it, he got to develop with Jahan Dotson, who was just drafted by Washington in the first round. And they would go against each other in practice every single day, back and forth. And Castro-Fields, when I asked him about this, he's convinced that Jahan Dotson was the best wide receiver in college football last year. So between Deshaun Hamilton, KJ Hamler, who's now with the Broncos and actually spent the draft with Tariq Castro-Fields and his family a couple weeks ago, and Jahan Dotson, there was a ton of iron sharpening iron at Penn State for Tariq Castro-Fields. Those are all excellent receivers who would test him every single day in practice. So because you have this experience at Penn State, because you play against these types of wideouts and you practice against these types of wideouts, and you have that big school pedigree, you get quotes from John Lynch like this, who said, if you're playing DB at Penn State, you're doing something right. And Tariq Castro-Fields was definitely doing something right. Now, obviously, there are things that he needs to improve. He's going to have to prove that he's got that 2019 pop. He's going to have to reestablish that, and he's going to have to reestablish some of the consistency that he showed before he got hurt that year. I think he went a long way toward doing that in 2021, but of course the NFL, they like the new shiny objects on the block, right? And it was tough because Castro-Fields had kind of overstayed his window at Penn State. He went from second, third, maybe even fourth round pick to a sixth round pick. But the 49ers, because of that, believe they got real value. And here is the final point I have to make. We talk about the cerebral aspect of the game. That's so important. We talk about Richard Sherman teaching his teammates. We talk about Tariq Castro-Fields being a coach at Penn State in that meeting room, helping out Terry Smith. That's all great, but if the guy can't run, if he's not athletic at all, then it doesn't matter in the NFL. You're going to be stuck in quicksand as receivers blow by you. Well, Castro-Fields ran a 4.3840, as here we see his spider chart. And his relative athletic score ranked number 4 of all qualifying cornerbacks. So look at this, 40-yard dash, that 4.38 is 89th percentile of cornerbacks. 10-yard split is 85th percentile of corners. Good height, 70th percentile at about 6'1". The wingspan is above average at 57%. The arm length probably lowered his stock, 26th percentile with the arm length. I think the arms are somewhere between 30 and 31 inches. Not as long as Richard Sherman's arms, 32 inches. And obviously that was the big deal with cover 3 cornerbacks. Pete Carroll wanted long arms. And Richard Sherman obviously turned himself into a future Hall of Famer with those physical measurements combined with what was going on upstairs. Richard Sherman obviously was a very smart cornerback. So when you talk about Tariq Castro-Fields being able to combine the physical skill set with the cerebral skill set, the physical skill set is a little bit different than Sherman's, right? He's a little bit shorter. The arms aren't quite as long, but he definitely is faster. And the relative athletic score right here, 9.74, that's really good. Anything in green is good. Anything in red is below average. And I mean, he's great. His composite explosion grade is great. His composite agility grade is good. That combines the shuttle and the 3-cone. The 3-cone was below average, but the shuttle was well above average. So you look at this, I think the 49ers have moldable clay at cornerback. Now the question is, where is Castro-Fields going to fit? That's the big one, because this room is a lot deeper for the 49ers than it has been in years prior. Jason Verrett is icing on the cake instead of fixture cornerback 1 this season. You also have guys like Ambry Thomas, Diomedor Lenore. Dante Johnson is still on the team after being a playoff hero for the 49ers last season. So we have to figure out where exactly Tariq Castro-Fields is going to slot in. That being said, I think he's got the tools to climb the ladder for the 49ers because he's got the mental aspect of the game working for him. And obviously with that kind of relative athletic score, with that kind of 40, he's got the physical aspect working as well. So that's why Tariq Castro-Fields might be the toughest 49ers 22 pick to figure out, because he's got so much going for him, yet they got him in the 6th round. There's a ton of upside here for the 49ers, and that's what you look for late in the draft. Be sure to check out all of our pieces on The Athletic about the 49ers 2022 draft class. Here they are. I could pop this one open big on the screen for you. Meet the 49ers 2022 rookies. There's Castro-Fields. That's the most recent article. But of course, the other day had the piece on Drake Jackson, which I could very, very briefly show you right here. Of course, Brock Purdy. That was written by Matt Barrows. Matt also wrote a little bit about Danny Gray, and it looks like I can't open that one right now. So we're all good. But the 49ers in this draft class, 23 new players, when you also consider the fact that they brought in a whole lot of undrafted free agents. We're going through every single name on that list, and all the big names are almost covered. So be sure to check that out. Be sure to check out the piece on Tariq Castro-Fields. It is in the comment section. Like and subscribe to the channel, and it's $1 to get on board to The Athletic. Everybody take care. Have a great Friday.